Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, final week of the regular season has arrived. What's there to be gained? What's there to possibly be lost? We put our bracketology britches on today on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So visit FanDuel.com to get started today with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you, man. Kicking off a brand new week, and it feels good to be doing that, obviously, after a win as the Red Raiders get a win on the road in Lawrence, Kansas on Saturday. Hope you caught our reaction episode yesterday. If you have not, find it for thoughts on the Red Raiders and the Jayhawks on today's episode. I want to get to what's coming up over these final two games here of the regular season this week. One home, one away. You'll host Colorado. You'll visit Arizona State to wrap up the regular season. I want to talk about what could be gained, what could be lost with a win or a loss. And we'll also probably add some Big 12 tournament context to that as well. But I want to discuss that and discuss some seeding thoughts as to where the Red Raiders maybe are this week or where they could wind up. And I got a question from a Matador mobster I want to throw at you as well as it relates to that. And before we're out of here, we've got a shout out for a goat. So remind me of that, Chris. Don't let me end this sucker without that. But as far as what's happening on the hardwood, final week of the regular season, it's Colorado, it's Arizona State, Texas Tech in a very good position right now, resume-wise. But I'm wondering maybe what you're thinking about things that could be on the line. And I'll also offer you the option of nothing this week, but I doubt that that's going to be the choice. What's there to be gained or lost potentially, you think?
So I think the win over Kansas, it creates some different dynamics for you. and I think much like the win over Houston, because theoretically, it was going to be really difficult to beat Houston and beat Kansas in the same week. A 2-0 week would have been a lot of fun. But either way, a 1-1 week, and it was extremely. It wouldn't have mattered which is what. There was a lot of dividends to be paid on. So this was a quad 1A win in Lawrence over the weekend, and that is there's quad 1B, and then you get the quad 2 and A and B and all that stuff. Okay, so because keep in mind, for all the struggles that Kansas has had, they have wins over Duke and Michigan State and North Carolina, and North Carolina may not make the tournament, but I mean there's some legitness. Is that a word? To what they've got going. So the computers like them quite a bit. On the fact that you won in their building. So your net stays at the same. I think it's 7. Your Ken Palm is in that 7-8 range as well. So it stayed the same. And I think it could have dropped just a titch in either case. But what you're looking at now is that now it's going to be really difficult for you not to have a first round bye in the Big 12 tournament. I think one more win by you guarantees it. And you've got a tiebreaker over BYU. You've split with Arizona. You've got the win over Houston, which is a nice feather in your cap if there's any ties that need to be broken. Obviously, Iowa State has a tiebreaker over you if there were to be a tie because of their head-to-head win over you. Anyway, I think you kind of get close to locking yourself into not having to play until Thursday of the Big 12 tournament. And keep in mind, that tournament starts, I think, like 11:30 a.m. on that Tuesday. So some of these teams this weekend are going to play into the wee hours of the night on Saturday night, and then they've got to get up and go to KC on either Sunday or Monday morning, and they're playing right out of the gate on Tuesday. You won't even show up, it doesn't look like, until leave on Tuesday and then play on Thursday and all that stuff. Okay, so that takes away a potential landmine of a game on Wednesday, whereas if you win it, great, doesn't really help you. If you lose it, could hurt you some. But what I think ultimately – this win did, though, is if you can string some more together here, I really think that you're either headed to, and you may have locked this up, because if you're a top 4 seed, geography you must be rewarded with geography going to the NCAA tournament. Okay. And it may not, it just depends on where the 8 first round sites are going to be. Sometimes it's Dallas. Okay. And you're like, whew, what did we luck out? Other times it could be Wichita, Kansas, or Denver, which is the 2 closest to you in this particular instance. One is a 7-hour drive from Lubbock. The other is an 8-hour and 10-minute drive from Lubbock. But that's what you're looking at right there, is that you'll likely, I think, fall no further than a 4 seed. It doesn't appear. And we don't ultimately know. All we can do is take all the information we've got and based on the committee's thoughts of you with their first 16 team that they laid out, because that's telling you we like the Big 12. We think Texas Tech is pretty good, and you've really done only a few things really to help you since that case was made, and we saw that those rankings get tossed out there. So in those games, I think in Denver and in Wichita, those are Thursday, Saturday games. So you can kind of start to get a feel for what this is going to look like. And again, you may be, if you get in a hurry here and you go 2-0 this week and win a game in KC, I mean, you can't rule out a 2 seed. So much of that depends on what everybody else has gotten going. But if you could just get to that 3 line, I'd take it and run right now with no takebacks, because then that removes the having to play a 1 seed in the second weekend in the Sweet 16 game. Again, we always look at all these things, and yet the first weekend of the tournament rolls around. It's like chaos sometimes happens, and you're like, remember when we thought that Duke was just going to roll to the Final Four and South Dakota State beat them in the first round, and you're like, yeah, I mean, we all knew that, right? I mean, that's the beauty of this tournament. So I'm just trying to play it out as far as odds in your favor, in the way that it may, because having more fans there, or theoretically getting an easier game in the first or second round, this is the way it's supposed to work, and it's supposed to reward you for winning in Houston, winning in Lawrence, winning on the road in all these places. So anyway, that's kind of where it's at, and because like you play the worst 2 teams in the league this week. Okay, that's a bit scary. Although I'm not trading it with anybody, but you look at it and go, either loss is a really bad one. It would not be kind to your metrics. But like, there's some of these teams around you in the conference standings that are gonna take an L this week. I mean, Kansas hosts Arizona. I think BYU and Iowa State still have a game to play. So somebody takes an L there. I mean, there's still some juice left in the. I mean, Houston plays Kansas tonight, I guess, and so there's some meaningful games here where some of these teams at the top of the standings or around you are going to take a loss this week, and so a 2-0 week you could finish up this week is second place in this conference and be in a pretty good spot,
which we all saw coming, no doubt.
Yeah,
so
right.
It sounds like there may not be much to gain necessarily, but there could be, a couple of dings to your resume if you're not doing the right stuff over these final 2.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, and you're probably right in some ways, but I guess by saying there's not a lot to gain, there's a lot to lose, and so there is a lot to gain. Does that
Right.
make
you gain the fact that you didn't lose anything.
Yes, and I do think you can improve upon your situation because other people around you could have their situation hurt. So there is some opportunity to move up, like not just in the standings, but with some of these metrics and things like that. So,
well, that was one thing I wanted to ask you too, like kind of where if you had your druthers, and we all want our druthers this time of year, where you'd like to land. That sounds like 3 seed. If I'm hearing you right, would be the.
Well, I think if you get to a 2 or 3, I think you because I just don't know. I just don't know if it's possible based on what else is out there. I just don't know if you can do enough to get to a 1. I think that's out. Your losses against UCF and TCU and some of these games, I just don't know if there's enough that you can ultimately do, even if because like between Auburn, Bama, Duke. Now Tennessee, Florida, St. John's is sniffing around. I mean, I just don't, obviously Houston, they probably should have been much earlier mentioned. And I was on list off team. There's just too many teams that, I mean, like Houston could like lose all their games this week and still potentially, I guess, get a 1. That's how good their resume is. Auburn has like as many quad 1 wins as I think anybody has ever had since they started doing it. I mean, it's insane. So they're almost like a lock to be a 1 seed at this point. And then you've got, like another 6 or 8 teams. You're just right there on the edge of outside of that. So that's why I say, man, if you go 2-0 this week and say go win a game in KC, I think depending on what else happens, I mean, like the 2 or 3 scenario is absolutely attainable. And some people are going to listen to what we're saying in here and say you're already there. But I guess the point that what Cowan is asking is that they're not releasing the bracket like right now. You can, because either game if you were to lose one this week would be your worst loss of the season. I think that's fair
I guess
to say.
so.
I mean, on paper or otherwise, it would be a bad. These are teams that are, as soon as their last game is done in the Big 12 tournament, short of them winning it, their season is over. So
we fishing, baby. We fishing.
Yeah, they're vacationing, and in Arizona State's case, I mean, Bobby Hurley may be looking for a job elsewhere. I don't know how that'll play out, but
I want him to keep that psycho around. Keep him there, man. he's good. He's good entertainment.
He's angry.
You're kind of answering this in a way I think already, but I just want to throw it to you anyway. This is from Michael, one of our Matador Mobsters, is texting about this with him prior to the show, saying, I was rewatching the game on TV. They had a bracket, said chances for Tech to be a top 4 seed, 72%. But Arizona, Iowa State, Houston all had better chances to be a top 4 seed. Help me understand, says Michael. How can we be ranked number 10 in the country, yet not in the top 16 teams in the bracket? First, today's episode brought to you by Roy. And before the Roy app, NIL negotiations often happened under the table, and fans didn't have a clear way to directly support the athletes they love. Now with Roy, you get to be part of the change and support Texas Tech athletes in the most transparent way possible. Roy, the NIL app, allows you to choose the player you want to support, decide how much to contribute, and receive exclusive content from the athletes you back. The best part, if your player transfers, you get your money back. It's a risk-free way to show your support. The Roy app has given fans control, no more uncertainty. Now you can provide transparent, impactful support and help shape the team and the future of college sports with your contributions. Just download the Roy app now from the App Store and start backing Texas Tech athletes with transparency and trust. This is the future of college sports. Join it now by downloading Roy and supporting your team and your favorite athletes. How can we be ranked number 10 in the country, yet not in the top 16 teams in the bracket? Does that make sense?
Oh, it absolutely does. And this is why we try to tell everybody all along that AP poll is fun and you want to talk about it and we talk about it, but it's just, it doesn't really matter. These are voters that are just putting a list together. They may use it. This is not what the tournament selection committee is looking at. Having said that, if you are looking at those percentages during the game, keep in mind you went on to win, so your chances I think would have been better after the result of your game that you were watching the telecast on, because you ultimately got the result and won. And then I think that did I hear that Iowa State and Arizona were mentioned?
Arizona, Iowa State, Houston,
yeah, okay.
Michael was saying all had better chance or a higher percentage, I guess.
Okay, well, Arizona took a massive L in Ames later that night, so their chances would have. You see what I mean? So it's all very fluid, but don't. If you want to look at stuff, look at Brett or Bart Torvik. It's one of the metrics they're using. Ken Palm, the net rankings. Those are. That's what the committee. There's like 7. Essentially metrics that they are looking at, and that lays out. I mean, we're talking efficiency and ranking wins and all these different things that they put into because the best thing is, again, what the committee has already told you about yourself. What were you, 13th? What were you, 13th on the
last time we saw?
Exactly. And what have you done since then? not much to hurt your situation. And like ESPN, like Joe Lunardi, there's a bit of a cottage industry that he's made off of the bracketology thing. Jerry Palm with CBS used to have some of these guys on radio show when we were doing it, and they're fun to talk to. They're not ones filling out the bracket. They're just going off of history. They've got they're well versed in and understanding all the rules, because what you're about to get, you're going to start hearing more and more about this. If the SEC gets, say, 11 or 12 teams in, there's so many rules in place that kind of can affect the bracket a bit, to where you can't see a team until the Sweet 16. If you played somebody 3 times in the season already, they can't meet again until the Final Four. There's all these different dynamics, so they try to give you a fresh look, and that alters the bracket a bit, this and that. But bottom line is, if you're a 4 seed or better, geography is on your side. They're going to reward you by sending you as close as they can to home, and in these cases, it's Wichita or Denver. And it last check, most people felt like that University of Houston and Texas A&M would benefit going to Wichita, Kansas, because they would be like either a 1 or 2 seed and maybe a 2 or 3, and they would get the Wichita region, and they would get the benefit of geography, which would in fact send you to Denver if you were like maybe a 3 or 4 or whatever. So those are things worth paying attention to, how A&M's doing down the stretch here, because it could in fact decide where you end up getting sent. So it's all fascinating. I like your chances on having a much better seed than Arizona in this deal. I think Iowa State is still to be determined. I think they've got a bit more in the non-conference and a win over you, which is one of their better wins. Think about what you've done, and now think about what Iowa State has got on their resume as a win in Lubbock, Texas. It's not nothing. I mean, and that's kind of your doing, unfortunately. So there you go.
I know it often depends on kind of the excitement level leaving the regular season can impact stuff like this, but what's been the experience from your point of view with a Red Raider fan traveling contingency postseason wise? Because I know we want some of these locations that are close in proximity. We've been in San Diego not too long ago as well. I think what's been the experience? Because I think for the most part, I don't know if it's new or just something that gets more attention now. Maybe there's more fervor and our numbers grow every day. I know that, but the traveling aspect of the Tech fan base has seemed to have, I don't know, either grown or been highlighted more or something in recent years. Does that make sense? You feel the same thing?
Absolutely. It's amazing to me, even in these conference games, that people, because I think there's a lot more to do in Lubbock, Texas than there is a lot of these Big 12 cities, just in general, just life in general. And it's funny because I think that when you live in Manhattan, Kansas, or Ames, Iowa, some of these people will look to take their vacations or trips and involve it around the Big 12 tournament, or going to some football game in the fall. I can go, they'll use this is just what they do.
Sure.
And I think, I noticed this with a lot of the Tech fans. There was a lot of people in that Utah trip. They were like, you know what? I'm going to go ski. I'm going to get up and go see some places I haven't ever seen before, catch 2 Texas Tech basketball games. I mean, you're starting to see that more and more. And I was shocked at how many Texas Tech fans were sprinkled in the Kansas crowd as well. But when you went to San Diego, I think anytime your team is legit, and you are this year, I think the fans go, okay, let's do it. Let's go make it happen. Because the NCAA tournament is just like no other.
It's so much fun.
Yes, it just is. And if you can
being there is what we're talking about. The vibe is so cool.
1,000%. And it can work against you if you're, because the Tech fan can generally affect their team, unlike some, because of how many fans that you have there or don't have there or whatever. I just remember going to let's see, when Tubby's first time in the NCAA tournament, it was his last year here, and he would leave for Memphis shortly thereafter. But we played he left for Memphis. We played Butler in Raleigh, North Carolina. It was like the 11-15 Thursday game. It was one of the very first games of the entire tournament, and there just wasn't a lot of people in the stands. and it's just not a lot of energy. And this is typical more often than not with NCAAs. This is why they started adding geography into it to help ticket sales, to help everything with it, because there's plenty of venues to where sometimes one fan base buys up all the tickets and then not everybody else has any tickets to buy. And so it kind of leads to an empty gym. And then if you get neutral court observers or neutral observers or whatever, they are sitting there and they start rooting for the underdog. So if you're the favorite, and this is kind of what happened to you last year. I think when you were in Pittsburgh, this was a Kentucky crowd, but any neutral observer was there, started rooting for this kid, the Jack Golke kid that was just burying him from everywhere from Oakland. And they beat Kentucky and all the neutral folks. But when you started playing NC State, who was in a weird way like this Cinderella.
Yeah, it's like the best story going.
Yes. and like that DJ guy and all the different pieces that they had, the neutral, people that don't care who's there and winning or losing, they all started rooting for NC State all the way to the Final Four, theoretically. Right. But yes, I think you would get quite a few fans actually in either Wichita or Denver, because it's an easy flight. It's drivable, and you can spend 4 days and potentially watch your team, hopefully for 2 games and hopefully 2 wins. But that's why it's so crucial. I wish it was, because like the Final Four year, you went to Tulsa, same thing.
Yeah,
you had a ton of people there, and that makes it easier on you. And like the Dallas experience, I mean, these are fun, man.
Yeah, we know what it's like in Dallas,
yes.
And had several friends making the drive to Tulsa not too long ago. I hope we're getting into that kind of run, of course, this time around, and we're traveling all over the country to watch the Red Raiders continue to roll. But some thoughts there on what's happening as far as the bracketology is concerned. And, of course, these things continue to remain fluid over this week. We hope the Red Raiders just taking care of business, and then we won't have to worry all that much about what's shaking otherwise. But you've got Colorado coming up. We'll get ready for that one on an upcoming episode as they come to town on Wednesday night. And then you've got Arizona State on Saturday night in Tempe to wrap up the regular season. I didn't, and not that it's all that jarring or anything, but I really hadn't considered it, like you said it just a moment ago, in that this would be as rough of an L as you've taken if you trip up in either one of these, given what these teams have been. So hopefully that's not the case. And, of course, we all remember the last time around against Arizona State. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. And when the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. And FanDuel's live betting feature electrifies every moment. Whether backing your team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch shot, you're never going to miss your chance to get in on the action. Plus, the app, easy to use. And when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. And make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Of course, we all remember the last time around against Arizona State. Whenever they came to town, that was a pretty wild.
And you know what? You know what's funny about that is I look back on that, and like there's a couple of points I want to make about that particular game, because you're in the throes of that game and you're looking at it going, if we don't figure this out, like you see what's about to come up on your schedule, the Houston and the Kansases and trip to Stillwater and and all the things that you had going on, you're like, we could rattle some L's off here in a row if we don't, this is a bit scary. And you're sitting there trying to chase this Arizona State team. And again, you start looking at it going, man, maybe we're just not that good. You have all these doubts and then you figure it out. And now you've played well. But I think that the fact that you struggled with them, I love that for that being the regular season finale, because there's not any chance at all that your team will overlook them or take them lightly because of what a disaster that game was for you defensively.
Okay, I like that.
And I think that has every opportunity to work in your advantage this time, regardless of what – because Arizona State got blitzed by Utah in Salt Lake. They were missing some pieces. I think Jaden Quaintance is, in fact, out for the year. They've dismissed a player since then, and we've got time to build up to that. But they were only having like 6 scholarship players, and there's all these different things going on. But because it's the PTSD for us Tech fans, right? You just kind of like waiting for the rug to get pulled out. Like who's gonna, what's going to happen here? But that's the one thing I think that I had in my back pocket there as I thought about that. I was like, man, these coaches are going to show these kids this game. And I mean, I just don't think there's any chance that you're like, yeah, we got that. No way at all. And I love the fact that obviously the Colorado team that you get is at home for a regular season finale at home. So anyway, because Colorado's net 97.
Yes.
Arizona State's is 65. I mean, these are out of the range of anything that would help you and only hurt you. So anyway, there you go.
Should be a fun night at United Supermarkets Arena to wrap up the regular season. As far as the homestand goes, that's on Wednesday, and then you're in Tempe on Saturday night for the Sun Devils, and then the postseason is upon us, and the Red Raiders will be back to chasing some hardware. Speaking of hardware, Chris, before we get out of here, it's time to turn to the barnyard, and let's turn to the goat pen. There are a few roaming around here or there in West Texas. One of those goes by the name of Wes Kittley. He's got more trophies to add to his trophy case. It's becoming very, very crowded. I don't know if you can speak to the rumor that when Zach Kittley took the head coaching job and left town, his father actually told him, just don't sell the house. I need it for some extra trophy room. So I'm not quite sure where those trophies go, but he's needing more space by the day, it seems like. Big 12 championship we're talking about for both the men and the women for Wes Kittley and his track and field program leaving the weekend. These are indoor championships. If you're not familiar with the run, let me refresh your memory. I think that's back-to-back, maybe even a three-peat for the men as far as the conference goes. He's got a national title just a year ago as far as the men's indoor is concerned, some outdoor championships as well. I mean, he's been a legend for a while, Chris, but if you thought like maybe – I don't know, 5 years ago or something, I wonder if Wes Kittley's starting to think about golf or something like that. You'd be wrong because he's been busier than ever as far as winning hardware. So I wanted to make sure we were shouting out the men and the women capturing conference crowns.
Yeah, I mean, what just adding to his legacy as one of the greatest to ever do it, and really any coach on this campus being able to do it, he's as good at what he does as anybody that's ever come through here. Period. Player, coach, administrator, it doesn't matter. He's as good at coaching track and field as Cody Campbell and John Sellers are at making money. How about that?
That's very good.
Yeah, and that is very good. I just and he's so genuine. And it's just they've had to change a bit with NIL, and this will look a little bit different as it goes. But they're just he's able to adapt, and this facility has just done wonders for his program, and I think that this is. He would tell you, and it's not entirely true, but I mean I do agree with the sentiment. He would tell you this facility is the biggest reason why they were able to have these successes in the indoor season, obviously, but because it's able to allow him to recruit special athletes to run and jump and throw and all that stuff for him. But because I mean, they literally have an indoor season, and it's like they just sit tight. He's got leaned back in his easy chair, putting his feet up on the ottoman, and everybody comes to him. I mean, everybody. I mean, the Arkansas, the Oregons, the LSUs, the Floridas, you just name it from across the country. It's amazing. Like if I thought about the football equivalent or the basketball equivalent of what comes into Lubbock, Texas for an indoor meet, it would blow your mind.
Oh yeah, it'd be the best multiple team event in the country.
I mean, and it's just, but that's what you get from the track and field standpoint, and it's all because of Wes and this facility and the program that he's been able to put together. But I love that they get to host this. I guess it's every other year. I think they trade with Iowa State. It's like every other year Iowa State hosts it, then you host it and all those things. But yeah, kudos to a friend of ours and friend of this program, and just a phenomenal man. But yeah, he deserves it, and they will be heard from nationally. Yeah. Okay, because this is just the Big 12. They will be heard from nationally. And then they'll start it all over, and they'll be heard from nationally and conference wise in the outdoors as well. So it's 2 different sports, it's 2 different trophies, it's 2 different natties, it's 2 different conference titles, and that's why he's just swimming in rings, just giant, massive gold rings. If you need to order championship rings for one of your programs out there and you're not sure, okay, what catalog, Wes knows. Wes knows exactly. He's got the catalog down. Well, here's what you're going to need to do here. So this is what it's going to cost you. This is all the different things you can. Because he's got model 83.0 going on with the championship rings. It seems like so. Yeah, but shout out to the GOAT, man. There's no doubt.
Yeah, I think he's wearing them on his toes now. Grandkids are wearing some around. Everybody in the family, wearing championship rings. That's awesome, man. 3 consecutive. For the men, first ever for the women. So maybe they'll start their own run, but just amazing things happening for Coach Kittley and his crew. So shout out to all of them for their success over the weekend, and I'm sure still more to come. All right, plenty more to come this week. Chris, we'll be getting closer to another tip-off, as we talked about on Wednesday night on an upcoming episode. We'll set the table for that. Also spend some time talking Red Raider football this week as well. Got to hear from Red Raider head coach Joey McGuire on a variety of subjects recently. And if you didn't catch it, we're going to catch you up on what he had to say on an upcoming episode as well. So hope you'll join us for that. Chris, you especially, going to need you back in that seat, man. Appreciate the time as always. Enjoyed it. And we'll see you for the next one.
Hey, man, you got it. Hope is indeed alive, man. But, I hope everybody enjoys their week. Let's have a 2-0 week and keep this thing going as we get into March here and dig into it a little bit. So appreciate everybody for watching and being a part of these and everything. It's a lot of fun for Cowan and I, and we appreciate that so many of you enjoy these.
That's right. Everybody loving everybody's season right now because winning is fun. All right. Hopefully that continues, and we'll be here to discuss it one way or another. So I hope you'll join us for that. Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Shout out to the Everydayers and shout out to the Matador Mob. If you're interested in becoming a Matador Mob insider, hit the show notes for a link to your free 14-day trial. That's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks for the time. And as always, we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.